Well, with the Avengers blowing up all over the fucking world, Phase 2 is supposed to bring us a bigger, badder, funner Marvel movie universe. And that is exactly what this movie represents. Iron Man 3 is the most fun I've had with the Marvel movie universe outside of Avengers. The humor, the acting, the action scenes. I've never seen this stuff before and I have no idea how they did it. And it's also worth checking out in 3D IMAX, and that is something I almost never say about live action movies. The most amazing thing is that 3 movies in, Tony Stark as Robert Downey Jr. is still a fresh character. He is still super interesting to watch. In previous movies there were problems in balancing the yin and the yang of the character, the badass and the douchebag side of this personality, but this time you do not get distracted by how big of an asshole Tony Stark can be. This time he has a real character arc and he has real issues that he needs to work through, and you do not feel sorry for him, you do not pity him, you root for him because you really want to see him work them out. And that is very important, especially in the middle part of the movie where Tony Stark is separated from the main events and he no longer has his suit. He has to play detective in order to suss out what the bad guys are doing. The problem is that you as an audience kind of already know what they're doing, so he's playing detective to discover something that you already know. If Robert Downey Jr. was not Robert Downey Jr., the middle part of this movie would have been incredibly boring. It would have been like, come on, let's get to the action already. But even stuck in Hickville, Tennessee, with no suit, Tony Stark, or Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, is still riveting to watch. I also came into this thinking that Guy Pearce is going to play a character that is identical to the character played by Sam Rockwell in the previous movie, but actually his villain is a lot more interesting, and again there's that idea of him being kind of the bizarro Tony Stark. Especially since in the beginning he has an introduction kind of like Edward Nygma's introduction from Batman Forever, in the sense that here comes the dweeb to, you know, schmooze with the great, awesome, charming hero, and then the dweeb gets the shaft, and then he comes back as this smooth, charming villain. I'm tired of this bullshit, is what I'm saying. I think Rebecca Hall's character was completely unnecessary. She brought nothing to the movie, but I think Don Cheadle did a much better job this time. In the beginning, I think I perceived him more as comic relief in the sense that he's a beefed up version of Happy, but he really came into his own in the final act of the movie when he joins Tony in the fight, and you really see what he brings to the table. And also Don Cheadle really worked out for this part. Like, he looks awesome in this movie. Way to go, Don Cheadle! So when the movie ended and the people were leaving the theater, I noticed that, you know, they had smiles on their faces, so clearly they enjoyed it. And, you know, out on the outside I was smiling too, but on the inside, this is the beginning of the end. This is the movie that is going to divide the Marvel Studios fan base, because Disney really does have influence over these movies, and this is where it's most apparent. For instance, they were supposed to include the alcoholism storyline from the Iron Man comics, but they didn't. And you could clearly see where this was supposed to fit in the script, because the bad guys also have an addiction problem. And you could tell that maybe there was going to be some kind of parallel between the bad guys self-destructing themselves through their addiction problems and Tony Stark kind of doing the same thing with alcohol. But of course, they could not handle an alcoholic superhero, so we get stuck with the post-traumatic syndrome storyline. So we didn't get alcoholic Iron Man, but we did get a kid sidekick. A kid tells Tony Stark to get his shit together, and poof! By some form of Disney magic, he's all better. But the thing that worries me the most about Phase 2 and future Marvel movies is the nonchalant way they completely destroy the character for laughs. Because that is what happens to Mandarin in this movie. When it is revealed exactly who he is and what he is, the audience was laughing it up. While I was going, shit! It was a very isolating experience. It was a kick in the balls. And I don't even have balls. I don't even like the Mandarin. And I actually like the idea of what they did with him. How we build up superheroes and how we build up supervillains when in actuality their image has nothing to do with reality. You know, that kind of thing. It could have been a smart idea. But it was a joke they destroyed his character for a joke. But I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. But, like I said, it's the beginning of the end. They clearly have no problem sacrificing a character in order to get a few laughs. And that worries me because next time, it may very well be one of my favorite characters.